समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. Now, earlier this week, something interesting happened. And I'm sorry for using the word interesting. It is a sad incident. It was a tragic incident and an alarming incident to say the least. But interesting from the point of view of a journalist and interesting from the point of view of defense enthusiasts or military practitioners. Now, earlier this week, 3 F-15 Eagle fighters of the US Air Force were shot down over Kuwait. Now, initial reports said that it was probably shot down by this surface-to-air missile, which is an air defense system, probably the Patriot. But now there's a Wall Street Journal story that has come out which says that the 3 aircraft were actually shot down by a Kuwaiti F-18 Hornet. Now, this is a classic case of blue on blue, whether it is a surface to air or the Hornet is involved. Blue on blue is actually not uncommon. In India's context itself, in 2019, you had a blue on blue incident when a Mi-17 helicopter of the Indian Air Force was taken down by an air defense system of India itself. If you look at global incidents, the big one was in 1994 when the two Black Hawk helicopters were actually mistakenly shot down by the F-15C Eagle, right, aircraft during Operation Provide Comfort, in which 26 personnel were killed. In 2003, the Patriot air defense system during the Iraq War actually shot down a British Tornado and later a US F-18C aircraft, right? And even in Pakistan case, there have been cases where they shot down their own aircraft in what is considered as blue on blue. And to understand what really happened in Kuwait, whether this is something extraordinary or whether it is common, I have with me Group Captain Ajay Ahlawat. He's retired from the Indian Air Force. He's a fighter pilot, and he will guide us through the discussion ahead. So welcome to ThePrint, sir.
Thank you, Snehesh. Thank you for inviting me for this discussion. Looking forward to it.
So when you first heard the news and when you saw the videos of the ejection happening, what was your first reaction to it?
Shock, actually. Blue on blue is not something uncommon. It happens in almost all the major wars. But for somebody to shoot down 3 friendlies in quick succession, bewildering, interesting from the point of view of someone like us who study air power as a subject and more specifically force application through medium of air. So very keenly watching it, we hungry for more information. We would like to know why this happened, because incredibly stupid if it was man-made error, and incredibly unlucky if it fell through the cracks.
So, when I first saw the video and when I realized that it couldn't have been the Iranian aircraft shooting them down. The Iranians never claimed so. My first reaction was that it could have been a surface to air missile, by the air defense, because 3 aircraft simultaneously came down. So I'm assuming, so that's what I assumed. But Wall Street Journal story says that it was a F-18 Super Hornet. Now, if you could just get us going through what really happens, when does the lock-in happens? How does the how do you actually shoot down an aircraft, or how do you target? How do you take it?
Okay, trigger press is an event in the whole set of processes. So if you give me a couple of minutes, let me lay it out there how it typically works. In a large operation setting like this, where more than one element is involved, There is US Air Force, US Marine, US Navy, and then the coalition partners. Then to deconflict the whole thing, there's something called as ATOs, which is called Air Tasking Orders, a whole big bunch of documents. It lays out at so and so time, which aircraft will get airborne from where, what routing will be followed, and what is the job and task. It also lays down contingencies, alternates. So that ATOs is distributed to typically Blues 24 to 48 hours in advance, and it is distributed to all the partners which are on your side. There is some offset in some places where some information is not shared. So the ATOs is passed to everybody. So ATOs help in going ahead with positive and procedure control. Like you're relying on a radar to control your fighters. If the radar is knocked down and somebody else tells you that so-and-so blip is transiting, you can look at the ATOs and correlate, okay, this is a friendly and he or she is supposed to be here. Now, this is one layer. The next layer is the equipment now. The F-15 as well as F-18 both carry IFF Mode 5. It's an improvement on IFF Mode 4. IFF stands for Identify Friend and Foe. It's a small equipment in the aircraft. When interrogated via a code language, it replies in a code, basically, telling each other, I'm a friendly. So Mode 5 is very, very advanced. It has selective address system as well as selective identification system, not seen to make an error. So that is the next layer. So if you find something that you don't know, you interrogate. After that, or in parallel with that, is link 16. It's a NATO data link. Every warfighting platform in NATO as well as allies, both in this case, if it was a Kuwaiti pilot, F-18 would have link 16 and the F-15s had link 16. So all the information is shared in real time on the data link, improving the situational awareness, what is happening. Let's say all that failed. And despite all that information, the Kuwaiti pilot still had to press the trigger. Then comes the rules of engagement. What is the rules of engagement given for that day, that hour, or that mission? There are three kinds of track. There is friendly, confirm friendly, and there is hostile, confirm hostile. And in between, which is a larger part, is unknowns for the fighter cockpit, because he or she is not supposed to know all that, for which he gets control inputs from AWACS, flying radar in the air, or a ground control intercept station. So that takes care of the next part, which is rules of engagement. Let's say even that failed, that safety didn't work. In 1994, two F-15s shot down, one F-15 shot down two Black Hawk. Yeah. Everything, as I described till here, there was an AWACS. AWACS knew their Black Hawks could not relate to pilot in time. That failed. So let's say this failed at this time also. The pilot presses trigger. Now he shot down three. I'm assuming it was a close range IR heat-seeking missile based on the videos that we've seen. Not a big plume, motor had probably burnt out, and stuff like that. So the next question comes, he would have been within 2 to 5 miles range through his head-up display, through his close combat tracking modes. He should have been able to see the aircraft. Let's see that also failed. Come to the F-15 cockpits now. F-15s are equipped with very advanced sensors and systems. They have ANLQ250, which is a modern version of radar warning receiver. They also have AN-APR-57, which takes care of the IR-guided missiles. In short, they have enough equipment in the cockpit to tell them if something is incoming. They should have been able to see it. They should have been able to take care of it via chaff or flare. That didn't happen. So all these things happened, and as a result, there are 3 aircraft that were shot down. So, I took a little bit longer to explain the process of airspace management, and we're waiting for the report to see what actually went wrong or all these things went wrong.
So in your sense, so if you're saying there are multiple layers, right? You mentioned about the friend and foe thing. If that fails, there are, you are in touch with the AWACS, you have situational awareness that is there. The F-15s also have their own defense mechanism in place. They have a very powerful radar. They know exactly when your target, if they have been locked on. So in your sense, what really happens, sir? You've been a fighter pilot. You've seen all the flying and firing that needs to take place. So in your sense, what really happened there?
So I'm going by the reports that are available, which are not too many. The accident or the shoot down happened close to airport. 10 to 15 miles. So I think they were in the process of moving out to the tactical area. And when you get airborne in a war or an operation like this, your RWR is like a Christmas tree. There are so many warnings because it's showing you all kind of radars. And if you have activated voice signals, it is continuously chirping. There are various kind of sounds, friendlies, hostiles, unknowns, all kind of things. So typically during departure, when the formation is busy sorting out who's supposed to be where and initial, you keep the RWR volume low, which in my opinion could have, I'm guessing here, degraded the situational awareness in the F-15 cockpit. But I see no reason why the F-18 pilot did what he did. And, as the report suggests, that the pilot thought they could be Iranian drones. Now look at the direction of where the departure airport is. On his radar screen, he would get the BRA, which is bearing, range, aspect, angle of. In addition, he would get the ground speed of the threat he's painting. So if he sees the threat flying at 600, 800 kilometers per hour, Shahid can't fly at that speed. They fly at much lower. Then the aspect, which area they are, then where they are. I mean, if a drone is already over an airfield, there are terminal defenses around the airfield that should have taken care of it. I think it was LOSA, which is loss of situational awareness, that caused this. And again, both you and me are operating out of very limited information that's available.
So you're saying it's loss of situational awareness that really led to this this incident,
and the failure of other things that should have worked: the intercept protocols, the deconfliction protocols, the guidance from AVAX or ground control, the Link 16. I mean, man, which takes care of SOPs, and machine that takes care of the equipment, and they're designed for stuff like this.
As someone really said once, that don't look for conspiracies when the answer is plain stupidity, right? And you used that term earlier. So, but I'm just wondering. So, you are on an F-18 Hornet. You're flying, and you see an aircraft, which in your mind you've identified it as an enemy aircraft, and you fire your missile, air-to-air missile, striking it. But how do you manage to strike 3 aircraft at the same time, within that short span of time? And even if one aircraft has been hit, I'm sure the ground control, the AVAX and other systems would already come into play and tell him that, boss, this is friendly. But he went on and targeted 2 more. Does the aircraft have the ability to fire quick 3 air-to-air missiles and then all the 3 missiles targeting 3 different aircraft? How does this work, sir?
So typically a BVR launch cycle is little longer. It has to come within at least DMAX 1 ranges. The solution has to be confirmed. The fire command has to be available. Otherwise, you can keep pressing the trigger. The missile won't leave. A BVR launch protocol is slightly longer. My guess would be it will be a heat-seeking missile, which can be launched fairly quickly. 3 is possible. F-18 can carry up to 8. I'm assuming it was a side-mounted class of missile.
Yeah.
So launching 3 missiles in quick succession is, the pilot must get credit for coming good on his training in terms that he was able to shoot 3 quick ones. But again, we are discussing why it would happen. If he could see the aircraft, he should have been able to identify an F-15, because Iranians don't have anything like that. Twin tails, twin engine, biggish aircraft. Look at where Kuwait is. For an Iranian to make that far through so many layers of US Navy, the US other space and Kuwaiti AD elements, it should have been, some amount of situational awareness should have been applied. It seemed improbable. And I tell you, sorry, I'm going further than the question. Why do these things typically happen? The airspace management falls through the stitches. Stitches is basically one command authority shaking hand with other command authority, and the protocols or the SOPs in between is called stitches. It falls through stitches. So it was the Kuwaiti AD that would have cleared, or the Kuwaiti SOPs that would have allowed him to shoot 3 missiles in quick succession. So essentially what has happened, the airspace awareness was shared with the allies, but airspace authority was not. So when the Americans held back on the authority, the local authority, exercised their own authority. Okay, I launch at wherever I think is appropriate. So that is a big lesson for us as well. When we create SOPs for our airspace management, Balakot is a very sad reminder where our own missile shot down an Mi-17 helicopter.
Mi-17 helicopter. Yeah.
So, airspace management is a combat function. It's not a secondary or an enabler function. With today's war, drones, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missile, manned, unmanned fighters, and other kind of assets in the air, airspace management is a combat function and needs equal attention and equal amount of training.
So, of this incident, now we're discussing how the aircraft really shot down, how and why. And that is entirely based on one media report. The CENTCOM has not commented on it yet. Neither has the Department of War, as they call it, has not commented on it yet. There are some who would say that it could have been a surface-to-air missile, maybe a Patriot or a similar version of it. Why do you think it could not be the surface-to-air missile? If you could just explain to our viewers. The reason why I'm asking this, viewers, because we had a discussion prior to this recording, and he said that this is unlikely to be a surface-to-air. So if you could just explain it to me again, why do you think it's not a surface-to-air missile?
So, Snehesh, at this stage, our discussion is, slightly at a higher pedestal than gossip or, conspiracy theories. And it falls short of an intellectual discussion that originates out of confirmed information.
Yeah.
So we are operating in a space where there's a lot of guesswork involved. And that's where we apply our acquired knowledge. Coming specifically to this incident or accident, if I may call it, there are some videos shared on X. So if you look at those videos, before they hit, you don't see any plume, you don't see a missile trail.
Yeah.
So it looks like it was an air-to-air missile, and it was a stage of after motor burnout. I mean, it was moving only on inertia. That is why it could not be seen on the videos. If it was a surface-to-air missile, since the shutdown happened at low altitude, we would have still seen the missile trail. The second aspect is Kuwaitis have had, as well as Patriots, if they had used either of these, they are very big missiles, and the warhead is at least 10 times more than an air-to-air missile.
Yeah.
When a Patriot hits something, the aircraft typically breaks into 2 or 3 parts. It causes catastrophic destruction.
Damage.
If you refer to 2003, the Iraq war, 2 Allied aircraft were brought down by Patriot, one F-15, one British Tornado, and the crew did not survive those accidents. So my estimate here is it wasn't a big missile. It was likely a shorter missile with not too much warhead, because we could see the aircraft intact. It would have taken out critical control system, making it unflyable. That part is clear. But the aircraft did not break into 2 or 3 parts. So my guess here is smaller missile with smaller warhead.
So if you see on your screen, this is the aircraft which is coming down. If you see, it is absolutely intact. Of course, there's the black smoke which is coming, which shows that the aircraft has been hit, but it is still intact. As in, when I say intact, I mean in one piece. And that's what Group Captain Ahlawat is explaining, that had it been for a surface-to-air missile, let's say for example, a Patriot, the aircraft would not have been intact. And it is very unlikely that at short distance, if a Patriot is fired, the pilots would have actually escaped. So from an Indian point of view, you mentioned that we had a similar blue on blue situation, a very tragic incident during Balakot strikes in 2019, where a Spider air defense system actually was fired, and it took down the Mi-17 helicopter of the Indian Air Force. Which had 6 people on board. A total of 7 were killed, including 1 on the ground. So, in a tightly contested airspace, in an airspace where there is, as you said, there are missiles, there are drones, there are loitering munitions, there are aircraft, there are helicopters. What lessons does a military? What lesson would a Air Force? I'm just not talking about the Indian Air Force, but generally an Air Force would get from this incident, sir. And how can this be avoided?
Yeah, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, airspace management is becoming more complex because the objects that are flying through the medium of air are of various kinds, various destructive ability, various speeds, and the whole nature of air warfare is changing. So the whole idea of airspace management is to reduce the unknowns and make everything classified as known, friendly, or known, hostile. That is the challenge with the airspace management operators. And this has been my experience, having studied the wars that we fought and having studied the wars that are being fought, that it is through these stitches, when one institution or one structure engages with the other one, where the cracks open up. Ideally, if everything, like if the IACCS was to take care of the entire airspace from the ground up till almost the space boundary, if we had the resources, the technical ability, and the organizational system in place, that would be the best answer. But that is not possible. Every service that has air defense weapons and that has aerial platforms would like to retain some control over them. That is, typically how it happens. You would have heard very recently Army coming out with a concept called air littoral, where they would like to control airspace from the ground till 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
So that will again create a stitch. What happens if our strike aircraft, which is partly damaged, unable to fly or maintain altitude, is forced to descend, or run out of ammunition trying to evade, flying low level to get away, and flies through one of these air littorals? Since the littorals are not directly speaking to the IACCS, it's more like a hub and spoke, where the IACCS hub and all these are spokes. So they talk to hub and go back. There is latency, couple of seconds, and if they have given to themselves the shoot down authority, like the Kuwaitis did in this case, what happens? So the bigger lesson here is, ideally, I've given you ideally, one entity controlling the entire airspace, one organization, one SOP. If that doesn't happen, there'll be stitches or handshake protocols. That is where we need to dive deep, look at possibilities, war game scenarios, and if we get stuck somewhere, there's no solution applicable, then that is something we need to solve. So one example, as I gave you, in my mind, air littoral will cause more blue and blues, if anything.
Air littorals will cause more blue and blue. I hope
because
it doesn't.
of the reason I told you. Because if the formation says I take care of the airspace from ground up till 10,000 feet, and if we do not have real-time data sharing between that formation and everything else that is flying, so they will have very few knowns and they'll have large number of unknowns. And if they let go of one or two unknowns because they don't know, and a couple of them turn out to be a drone and they carry out a strike over their area of operation, the next wave they see an unknown, they'll start shooting. So again, I mean, it's not that simple a question or an answer. Airspace management will get more complex. AIs will throw up more complex answer. AI is not going to solve it. We'll have to rely on equipment and procedures. So major challenge there for us, a major lesson there for us.
A major lesson there for us. But thank you so much, Group Captain, for speaking to the print and taking our readers and viewers in understanding, the complexity of the air warfare and what could have happened there in Kuwait. But thank you so much, Group Captain, for joining here at the print.
Thank you, Snehesh. Thank you for inviting me.